were given an isolated table at my sister's engagement party because of our financial status, but her fiancé's words changed the narrative and my sister's face turned pale. Growing up in a poor working-class family, my sister Veronica and I faced a myriad of challenges that profoundly shaped our childhood and, ultimately, our adult lives. Our parents worked tirelessly, often juggling multiple jobs just to make ends meet. The constant struggle for financial stability created an environment filled with stress and uncertainty. We learned early on that money was tight, and luxuries were a distant dream. Our home was modest, and we often had to make do with what little we had. This upbringing instilled in us a sense of resilience, but it also highlighted the stark realities of life in a way that many of our peers couldn't comprehend. The financial hardships we endured were not just about the lack of material possessions. They also affected our emotional well-being. There were times when we went to bed hungry, and the weight of our circumstances often felt heavy on our young shoulders. School was a refuge for me, a place where I could escape the pressures of home, but for Veronica, it was a stage. She thrived on attention and often used her charm to navigate social situations, making friends easily and drawing people in with her vivacious personality. While I focused on my studies and worked hard to secure a better future, Veronica relied on her charisma to charm her way through life. This divergence in our coping mechanisms became a defining aspect of our relationship and our individual paths. As we grew older, the impact of our shared upbringing became even more pronounced in our life choices. I was determined to break the cycle of poverty that had defined our childhood. I poured myself into my education, taking on part-time jobs to save for college. My hard work was driven by a desire for stability and a better life, not just for myself but for our family as well. I wanted to prove that with dedication and perseverance, it was possible to rise above our circumstances. In contrast, Veronica took a different route. She often used her charm to navigate life's challenges, relying on her social skills to gain opportunities rather than putting in the same level of effort. While I was studying late into the night, she was out making connections, attending parties, and building a network that would serve her well in the short term. This contrast in our approaches led to a growing rift between us. I admired Veronica's ability to connect with people effortlessly, but I also felt a sense of frustration. It seemed as though she was coasting through life, while I was working tirelessly to achieve my goals. Our differing life choices often sparked debates and disagreements, as I struggled to understand her reliance on charm over hard work. I believed that success should be earned through effort, while she maintained that relationships and social skills were equally, if not more, important. This fundamental difference in our values created tension, as we both grappled with the weight of our upbringing and the paths we had chosen. Despite these differences, our shared experiences in a working-class family forged a bond that was difficult to break. We understood the struggles of our parents and the sacrifices they made for us. We both carried the weight of our upbringing, albeit in different ways. While I sought to escape our circumstances through hard work and education, Veronica embraced her charm as a means of survival. This divergence in our paths has led to a complex relationship, filled with both admiration and frustration. In reflecting on our childhood, it's clear that the challenges we faced shaped us in profound ways. The financial hardships we endured taught us resilience, but they also highlighted the different strategies we employed to cope with our reality. As we continue to navigate our relationship, I hope to find common ground, recognizing that while our paths may differ, our shared upbringing has left an indelible mark on both of us. Understanding these dynamics is crucial as we work to bridge the gap between our contrasting life choices and find a way to support each other moving forward. As adults, the paths that Veronica and I have taken diverged significantly, reflecting the choices we made in response to our shared upbringing. My journey has been characterized by a steadfast focus on education and career success. After graduating high school, I was determined to break free from the cycle of poverty that had defined our childhood. I enrolled in a community college, working multiple part-time jobs to support myself while pursuing my degree. Education became my sanctuary, a means to not only improve my circumstances but also to create a stable future for myself. I immersed myself in my studies, often burning the midnight oil to ensure I excelled academically. My hard work paid off when I graduated with honors, securing a position in a reputable firm that offered me the opportunity to grow and advance in my career. In contrast, Veronica took a different approach to adulthood. While I was focused on building a career, she leaned heavily on her charm and social skills to navigate life. Veronica developed a pattern of using relationships as a means to achieve financial stability. She often found herself in relationships with men who were well off, leveraging her charisma to gain access to their resources. While I was investing in my education and professional development, Veronica was attending social events, charming her way into circles that could provide her with the financial support she sought. This reliance on relationships for financial gain became a defining aspect of her adult life, and it was a choice that set us on very different trajectories. The impact of these choices on our relationship has been profound. As I climbed the corporate ladder, I found myself increasingly frustrated with Veronica's approach. I admired her ability to connect with people and her knack for making friends, but I couldn't help but feel that she was taking the easy way out. I often questioned her decisions, wondering if she truly understood the value of hard work and dedication. Our conversations became strained as I tried to convey the importance of self-sufficiency and the fulfillment that comes from achieving success through one's own efforts. Veronica, on the other hand, viewed my choices as overly serious and rigid. She believed that life was meant to be enjoyed and that relationships could provide a more immediate sense of security and happiness. This fundamental difference in our values created a rift between us. I felt a sense of disappointment that my sister, who had so much potential, was relying on others to secure her future. I worried that she was sacrificing her independence and self-worth for the sake of financial gain. Veronica, in turn, felt judged and misunderstood. She believed that her choices were valid and that she was simply navigating life in a way that worked for her. This clash of perspectives led to heated discussions and, at times, a sense of resentment. As time went on, the contrast between our lives became even more pronounced. I found fulfillment in my career, relishing the challenges and achievements that came with it. I was proud of the stability I had created for myself, and I often wished that Veronica could see the value in hard work and perseverance. Meanwhile, Veronica's relationships were often tumultuous, marked by ups and downs that left her feeling emotionally drained. While she enjoyed the perks of her lifestyle, the instability of relying on others for financial support took a toll on her well-being. Despite these differences, there remained an underlying bond between us, rooted in our shared experiences growing up. We both understood the struggles of our past, even if our responses to those struggles were vastly different. As we navigated our adult lives, I began to realize that while our paths may have diverged, there was still room for understanding and support. I learned to appreciate Veronica's perspective, recognizing that her choices were a reflection of her own journey. In conclusion, the paths we have taken as adults highlight the complexities of our relationship. My focus on education and career success contrasts sharply with Veronica's reliance on relationships for financial gain. These choices have shaped not only our individual lives but also the dynamics of our sisterhood. As we continue to grow and evolve, I hope we can find common ground, embracing our differences while supporting each other in our respective journeys. Veronica's engagement party was meant to be a joyous celebration, a moment to honor her new life with James. However, as the evening unfolded, it quickly became a backdrop for tension and confrontation. The venue was beautifully decorated, with twinkling lights and elegant floral arrangements that set a festive tone. Guests mingled, laughter filled the air, and the atmosphere was charged with excitement. Yet, beneath the surface, the dynamics of our family were brewing a storm that would soon erupt. The seating arrangement was a reflection of Veronica's dismissive behavior towards me and my husband. She had meticulously planned the layout, placing her closest friends and family members at the prime tables while relegating us to a less desirable spot at the back of the room. It felt intentional, a subtle reminder of the distance that had grown between us over the years. I could sense the discomfort in my husband's demeanor as we settled into our seats, the laughter of others ringing in our ears while we felt isolated from the celebration. Veronica's dismissive attitude was palpable. She flitted around the room, engaging with guests and basking in the attention, seemingly oblivious to our presence. As the evening progressed, the tension in the air thickened. I tried to focus on the festivities, but my mind kept drifting back to the seating arrangement and Veronica's behavior. It was as if she was deliberately trying to distance herself from me, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider at my own sister's engagement party. My husband, sensing my discomfort, attempted to lighten the mood with small talk, but I could see the concern etched on his face. He knew how much this night meant to me, and he could feel the weight of the situation. Then came the moment that would ignite the confrontation. James, Veronica's fiancé, was making his rounds, greeting guests and thanking them for coming. As he approached our table, I noticed a flicker of recognition in his eyes. He paused, looking at my husband with a mix of surprise and confusion. "Wait a minute," James said, his voice rising slightly above the chatter. "Aren't you the guy from that charity event last year? The one who helped organize the fundraiser?" My husband nodded, a hint of pride in his expression as he acknowledged James's recognition. But before he could respond, Veronica, who had been nearby, interjected with a dismissive laugh. "Oh, please, James, don't waste your time talking to them. They're just here because they had to be." Her words hung in the air like a heavy cloud, and I felt the heat rise to my cheeks. The humiliation was palpable, and I could see my husband's expression shift from surprise to hurt. The laughter and chatter around us faded into a dull roar as I processed Veronica's words. It was as if she had thrown a bucket of cold water over the warmth of the celebration, and the tension in the room became almost unbearable. I could feel my heart racing, a mix of anger and embarrassment flooding through me. How could she be so cruel? This was supposed to be a moment of joy, yet she had chosen to belittle us in front of everyone. My husband reached for my hand, squeezing it gently in an attempt to offer comfort, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes. He had always been supportive of my relationship with Veronica, but this was a new low. I could feel the weight of the humiliation pressing down on me, and I knew I had to say something. "Veronica, that's not fair," I finally managed to say, my voice trembling slightly. "We're here to celebrate you, not to be treated like we don't belong." The room fell silent, all eyes turning towards us. The tension was thick, and I could sense the discomfort of the other guests. Veronica's expression shifted from amusement to irritation, and I knew I had crossed a line. But in that moment, I didn't care. I was tired of being dismissed and belittled. The confrontation had been brewing for far too long, and it was time to address the rift that had grown between us. As the silence lingered, I could feel the weight of the moment. This engagement party, meant to celebrate love and unity, had become a battleground for unresolved issues and hurt feelings. The tension was palpable, and I knew that this confrontation would change the course of our relationship forever. The aftermath of the engagement party incident reverberated through our family like a shockwave, leaving a trail of confusion, hurt, and unresolved tension. As the dust settled, the reactions of family members varied widely, reflecting the complex dynamics that had long existed beneath the surface. Some relatives were quick to express their support for me, voicing their disapproval of Veronica's behavior and acknowledging the unfairness of her dismissive remarks. They rallied around my husband and me, offering words of encouragement and solidarity. Others, however, seemed more concerned about maintaining the peace, urging me to let it go and not make a scene at what was supposed to be a joyous occasion. This divide only deepened the rift between Veronica and me, as I felt increasingly isolated in my decision to confront her. In the days following the party, I found myself replaying the incident over and over in my mind. The humiliation I felt was still fresh, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this was not an isolated incident but rather a culmination of years of dismissive behavior from Veronica. It became clear to me that I could no longer tolerate the toxic dynamics that had developed between us. After much reflection, I made the difficult decision to cut ties with Veronica. It was not a choice I took lightly. She was my sister after all, and we had shared so many memories together. However, I realized that the emotional toll of our relationship was too great, and I needed to prioritize my mental well-being. Communicating my decision to my family was challenging. I knew that some would understand, while others would view it as an overreaction. When I finally gathered the courage to explain my feelings, I was met with mixed reactions. Some family members expressed their support, acknowledging that standing up against toxic behavior was essential for personal growth. They recognized that my decision was rooted in self-respect and the desire for healthier relationships. Others, however, were less understanding, urging me to reconsider and suggesting that family bonds should be preserved at all costs. This pushback only reinforced my resolve. I had spent too long allowing Veronica's behavior to dictate my feelings and self-worth. The impact of my decision rippled through our family dynamics. Veronica, who had always been the center of attention, suddenly found herself facing the consequences of her actions. The support she had taken for granted began to wane as family members started to question her behavior. Some began to distance themselves from her, recognizing that her dismissive attitude was not just directed at me but had affected others as well. This shift in dynamics was both unsettling and liberating for me. I felt a sense of empowerment in standing up for myself, but I also grappled with the sadness of losing a sister who had once been my closest confidant. As time passed, I began to realize the importance of standing up against toxic behavior, not just for myself but for the sake of my own family. I wanted to model healthy boundaries for my children, teaching them that it's okay to walk away from relationships that are harmful. I understood that family is not just about blood ties. It's about mutual respect, support, and love. By cutting ties with Veronica, I was not only protecting myself but also setting a precedent for my children to prioritize their mental health and well-being. In the months that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life and nurturing the relationships that brought me joy and fulfillment. I understood that family is not just about blood ties. It's about mutual respect, support, and love. By cutting ties with Veronica, I was not only protecting myself but also setting a precedent for my children to prioritize their mental health. In the months that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life and nurturing the relationships that brought me joy and fulfillment. I surrounded myself with supportive friends and family members who uplifted me and respected my boundaries. This newfound clarity allowed me to reflect on the lessons learned from my relationship with Veronica. I recognize that while family dynamics can be complicated, it's essential to prioritize one's mental health and well-being above all else. Ultimately, the incident at the engagement party served as a catalyst for change in my life. It forced me to confront the toxic patterns that had developed over the years and empowered me to take control of my narrative. While the decision to cut ties with Veronica was painful, it was also liberating. I learned that standing up against toxic behavior is not just an act of defiance. It's an affirmation of self-worth and a commitment to fostering healthier relationships. As I moved forward, I carried these lessons with me, determined to create a life filled with love, respect, and genuine connections. After the tumultuous events of Veronica's engagement party, I found myself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. It was during this time that I decided to have a candid conversation with James, Veronica's fiancé. I felt it was crucial to share my perspective on Veronica's true character, especially considering the implications it could have for their future together. Honesty in relationships is paramount, and I believed that James deserved to know the complexities of the woman he was about to marry. As I sat down with James over coffee, I could sense the tension in the air. I took a deep breath, knowing that what I was about to say could alter the course of their relationship. "James," I began, "I think we need to talk about Veronica." His expression shifted slightly, a mix of curiosity and concern. I continued, "I know you love her, but I feel it's important for you to understand some aspects of her character that might not be immediately apparent." I explained how Veronica had often relied on her charm and social skills to navigate life, sometimes at the expense of honesty and integrity. I recounted instances from our childhood where her behavior had been dismissive or manipulative, emphasizing that these patterns had persisted into adulthood. I wanted James to see that while Veronica could be warm and engaging, There was also a darker side to her personality that could emerge when she felt threatened or challenged. My motivation for revealing this was not to tarnish her image but to ensure that James entered into marriage with a full understanding of who he was committing to. As I spoke, I could see James processing my words. He listened intently, his brow furrowing as I detailed specific incidents that illustrated Veronica's behavior. I shared how her dismissive attitude at the engagement party was not an isolated incident, but rather part of a larger pattern. I wanted him to understand that while Veronica could be charming, her actions often reflected a lack of consideration for others' feelings. I emphasized that honesty is the foundation of any strong relationship, and if he was to build a life with Veronica, he needed to be aware of the complexities that came with her character. James's reaction was one of surprise and concern. He had always seen Veronica through a lens of admiration, captivated by her charisma and confidence. Hearing my perspective forced him to reevaluate his understanding of her. "I had no idea," he admitted, his voice tinged with disbelief. "I thought she was just being playful or confident, but now I see there might be more to it." His acknowledgement of my concerns was a pivotal moment, as it indicated that he was willing to consider a different viewpoint. The implications of our conversation weighed heavily on both of us. James was faced with a difficult decision: to confront Veronica about her behavior or to accept her as she was, flaws and all. I could see the internal struggle playing out on his face. "I love her," he said quietly, "but I don't want to be blindsided later on. I need to know if this is who she really is." His honesty about his feelings was refreshing, and it underscored the importance of transparency in relationships. As we continued to talk, I encouraged James to have an open dialogue with Veronica. I stressed that it was essential for him to express his concerns and to seek clarity about her past behavior. "If she truly loves you, she'll appreciate your honesty," I said. "It's better to address these issues now than to let them fester and create resentment later." Our conversation marked a turning point for James. He realized that understanding Veronica's true character was not just about protecting himself. It was also about fostering a healthier relationship built on mutual respect and honesty. I could see that he was beginning to grasp the complexities of the situation, and I hoped that this newfound awareness would empower him to approach Veronica with the truth. In the end, my conversation with James was not just about revealing Veronica's past. It was about emphasizing the importance of honesty in relationships. It was a reminder that love should be rooted in understanding and acceptance, and that confronting uncomfortable truths can ultimately lead to stronger bonds. As I left our meeting, I felt a sense of relief, knowing that I had done my part to ensure that James was equipped with the knowledge he needed to navigate his future with Veronica. The final confrontation between Veronica and me had been a long time coming, a culmination of years of unresolved tension and hurt feelings. After the incident at her engagement party, I had spent countless nights reflecting on our relationship and the toll it had taken on my emotional well-being. I knew that I could no longer allow her dismissive behavior to dictate my self-worth. It was time to take a stand, to assert my boundaries, and to prioritize my own mental health. With a heavy heart, I made the decision to cut off all ties with Veronica. As I prepared for our confrontation, I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. I knew that this conversation would be difficult, but I also understood that it was necessary for my own peace of mind. I chose a quiet cafe, a neutral space where we could talk without distractions. When Veronica arrived, she seemed unaware of the gravity of the situation. She greeted me with her usual charm, but I could sense an underlying tension in the air. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I needed to say. "Veronica," I began, my voice steady but laced with emotion, "we need to talk about our relationship." Her expression shifted slightly, curiosity mingling with apprehension. I continued, "I've been doing a lot of thinking since the engagement party, and I've come to a difficult decision. I can't continue to have you in my life." The words hung in the air, heavy with finality. I watched as her face fell, the realization of what I was saying sinking in. "Are you serious?" she replied, her voice tinged with disbelief. "You're just going to cut me out like that? After everything we've been through?" I could see the hurt in her eyes, but I also recognized the familiar defensiveness that often accompanied our conversations. "This isn't about our past," I explained. "It's about how I feel in our relationship now. I need to prioritize my self-respect and my mental health. Your behavior has been toxic, and I can't allow it to affect me any longer." Veronica's reaction was a mix of anger and sadness. "You're being dramatic," she shot back, her voice rising. "I'm just trying to live my life, and you're making it all about you." I felt a pang of frustration at her inability to see my perspective. "It's not about being dramatic. It's about recognizing that I deserve to be treated with respect. I can't keep pretending that everything is okay when it's not." The emotional weight of this decision pressed down on me like a heavy blanket. I had spent years trying to maintain a relationship with my sister, hoping that things would improve, but the reality was that they hadn't. I felt a deep sense of loss, knowing that I was severing a bond that had once been so important to me. Yet, I also felt a sense of liberation. I was finally taking control of my life, refusing to let someone else's behavior dictate my happiness. As the conversation continued, I could see the realization dawning on Veronica. "You really mean it, don't you?" she asked, her voice softer now, tinged with vulnerability. "You're really going to walk away from me?" I nodded, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "I have to. I need to protect myself. And I can't do that while being in a relationship that constantly undermines my self-worth." The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel the weight of our shared history pressing down on us, the memories of laughter and love mingling with the pain of our recent conflicts. It was a bittersweet moment, one that encapsulated the complexity of our relationship. I wanted to hold on to the good times, but I also knew that I couldn't ignore the toxicity that had taken root. As I stood to leave, I felt a mix of sadness and relief wash over me. "I hope one day you can understand why I had to do this," I said, my voice trembling. "I truly wish you the best, but I need to move forward without you in my life." Veronica looked at me, her expression a mixture of anger and sorrow, but I could see a flicker of understanding in her eyes. Walking away from that cafe felt like shedding a heavy weight. I knew that the decision to cut ties with Veronica was not just about ending a relationship. It was about reclaiming my self-respect and establishing boundaries that I had long neglected. The emotional weight of this decision would linger, but I also felt a newfound sense of freedom. I was ready to embrace a future where I could prioritize my well-being, free from the toxicity that had defined my relationship with my sister for far too long.